Hello, my name is Dan Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to take a look at the sum and differences formula for cosine. So let's go ahead and get started. Now here, before we take a look at the actual formula, I want to show you something that you're probably already familiar with, which is the unit circle. And so the unit circle is commonly used in trigonometry because it gives you different values of the radians and the degrees on that circle. So here the radius of course is 1, you're familiar with that already. And so what is happening in this video in particular is that we are going to learn how to calculate values on this unit circle that are not here. For example, 105 degrees or 70 degrees or 183 degrees. There are ways to do this to find these exact values, if you will, by using the values that you already know that are commonly on the unit circle. Now, what we're going to do here is that in a moment, we're going to take these various values that we have here, so for example, pi over 6, and we're going to use the cosine values, like square root of 3 over 2 or 1/2, and we're going to use that to find, like I just said a second ago, unknown values that are not commonly on the unit circle. This allows you to calculate various things without the need of a calculator per se, if you are familiar with how to do this. So let me go over the formula here, and this is the formula. Now the formula for the sum of difference, this is the sum one. The difference one would have a minus sign here, but for the sum one, you have cosine A plus B. And so what it is that you take two values that you know, the A plus B, to find the unknown value. And that's what's happening here. So when you pull this out, you get the following equation right here underneath it. Cosine of A times cosine of B minus sine of A times sine of B. That's what you do to actually get the actual exact value for whatever cosine value you're trying to figure out. And what I mean by the actual cosine value is that you'll be able to figure out this the x coordinate, if you will. Again, I'm assuming that you're familiar with this. You'll be able to figure out this value right here for whatever degree set that you have that is not commonly found on the unit circle. So what we're going to do is this. Let me delete all this stuff right here. We're going to take the following value. We're going to try to figure out 60 degrees. In other words, we're going to try to find the exact value for 60 degrees. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to take 30 degrees, or we're going to take pi over 6 plus pi over 6. Now, you're probably saying, well, Darren, that doesn't make sense because pi over 6 plus pi over 6 is going to be pi over 3. Yes, that is the one way, the easiest way to solve that problem. But the reason we're going to take a value that we already know is so that you can confirm that this works. So let me walk you through the steps as gently and easily as I can. So this is what we're going to do. We have the following set up here. And so we have cosine, and then we have pi over 6 plus pi over 6. Yes, I know that's pi over 3, but we're going to go through all the steps. So if we use that sum formula for cosine, we're going to pull it out as follows. It's going to be, change the color here, cosine pi over 6 multiplied by cosine pi over 6, then subtract sine pi over 6 multiplied by sine pi over 6. That's what we get. Now, here's the thing. The cosine value for pi over 6 is square root of 3. Oh, let me just change the color here so we can just make this nice and pretty. Square root of 3 over 2. And so we're going to multiply that by square root of 3 over 2. Now the sine value is 1/2. Like so. So square root of 3 times square root of 3 over 2 times square root of 3 over 2 is 3 over 4 minus 1/2 times 1/2 is 1 over 4. And so we end up with 2 over 4, which gives me 1/2. So in other words, the exact value of pi over 6 plus pi over 6 is 1/2. Now, let's go back to the unit circle. If you check here clearly, I hope you can see this, you can clearly see that for this guy right here, the cosine value is 1/2. So we know for a fact that this works. That when you use the cosine formula, you are able to calculate the exact value of the cosine in terms of where it's at on the unit circle. Now, let's get to a little bit more of a realistic thing that you might see in any kind of textbook here. So, this time, we're going to use the following. We're going to find out cosine of 105 degrees. Now, if we go back to the unit circle, you're going to notice that we have a little bit of a problem. We don't have a value for 105. 105 is probably about, maybe about right here or so. Let me use a different color here. Right here, maybe about right there. I'm not exactly perfect on that, but somewhere around there. So we have a problem. Now, what we need to do is that, okay, we know that it needs to add up to 105. But remember, if you remember from the actual equation here, we always had two values here. Now, here's the point. If I can find two values that are on the unit circle that add up to 105, I'll be okay. In other words, if I can use any of these values here that they add up to 105 degrees, I'm good to go. So, I'm pretty sure you can already see what our choices are. But just in case you're wondering, if I take 45 degrees and 60 degrees, that'll add up to 105. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is going to equal cosine of 60 degrees plus 45 degrees. Now I'm ready to go. And so I just use my formula, my cosine formula again, and continue my calculations, and I'll be done. So cosine of 60 degrees, I already wrote that down so I don't have to go back. That's going to be, let me write the formula first. So cosine of 60 degrees times cosine of 45 degrees minus sine of 60 degrees times sine of 45 degrees. That's what we got. Now, cosine of 60 degrees is going to be 1/2 times cosine of 45 degrees. That value is going to be square root of 2 over 2 minus sine of 60 degrees. That the y value there is going to be square root of 3 over 2. And then sine of 45, that the y value there is square root of 2 over 2. So there we go. Now here we go. So we got multiply straight across. 1 times square root of 2 is going to be square root of 2. This is going to be 4 minus, this is going to be square root of 3 times square root of 2 is going to be square root of 6 over 4. And if we had to give you the answer, here's kind of the point here, the punchline. This is going to be square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over 4. This is the cosine value, the exact value. Now we can confirm this. So here we go. I already typed it in. So cosine of 105 degrees is negative 0.24. You can see that. Now, if we take what we just had, so we got square root of 2 minus square root of 6 divided by 4. You can see we get about the same value. Not exactly, there's some rounding that's going on here, but very, very close. And so this is how you are able to calculate these values without the need of a calculator. And it's very, very practical when you're trying to, again, solve other problems. A lot of the things that we're doing, that we've been learning the past few videos, they're not useful by themselves, like to stop there, but they're a tool for solving much more practical problems in the future. So let me see if I can kind of summarize what we learned here and then conclude the video. So in this video, we learned about finding the exact value for cosine. And so we took a look at the unit circle and the values of that. And this is the main formula here that we use. Cosine of a plus b. If you do that, and then you're gonna have this thing right here. Now I need to mention, just to make sure things are clear, if this is a minus sign here, this will be a plus sign here. So some are differences, whatever you want to do, but the steps are the same. And so when you use this formula, cosine of a times cosine of b minus sine of a times sine of b, you are able to get an answer. And so for our first one, we took, cosine of pi over 6 plus pi over 6. We knew that it was going to be pi over 3. And we know that if you take that value, it's going to be 1/2. We confirmed that because this was actually on the unit circle. But we did this one because since we knew the answer, we were able to confirm that this particular formula works. And then for this next one, we did one where the original degree value is not on the unit circle, or the original radian value. And so we went through the steps. We found two values on the unit circle that we knew to find out this unknown value, and we were able to solve it accordingly. And so going through the steps, we got square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over 4. And of course, when we put it in the calculator, it was close, not exactly, no pun intended, but it was very close to the value that we wanted. So I hope that this video was useful for you and you were able to understand what we were talking about here. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Take care.